power to compensate for maintaining our altitude and watching our pitch and airspeed. So seeing we're in slow flight, 10 degrees of bank should be fine, you know. So I just roll into my bank. I'm not fixating on my instrument. I'm a VFR pilot, so I'm looking out. I'm flying the airplane, I'm looking out. I'm referencing the horizon. If the nose drops, then I know I'm gonna be descending. If the horizon sort of disappears and the cowling comes up, then I know I'm climbing. So I'm looking outside, I'm flying the airplane, divide my attention. I look every now and then, I look in, scan my instrument. Okay, my visual, my heading is coming up on 220, so I just level my wings, power for altitude, pitch for airspeed. Alright, he says to me, make a turn to the right, to make a right turn to a heading of say 060. So I just say, okay, make a right turn, lift that right wing, make sure everything is okay over there. Okay, I don't see any traffic. Then I go into my standard right turn to the right. I'm powering for altitude, pitching for airspeed, trimming, and maintaining my slow flight along. And then he says, okay, I want you to transition from slow flight to a power off stall. And okay, that's a big mouthful, but it's something like this. We're gonna stall the airplane, right? Because we need to learn how to recognize and recover. That's the purpose of practicing stalls. Recognize, recover. So when he says transition from slow flight to power off stall, then where's my miniature airplane if I have it here? Okay, so what is a stall, you might be asking? A stall basically is we're flying along and, you know, wings level, air flowing over the wing, so it produces lift, right? A stall basically happens when you have what you call the critical angle of attack. It's where we are so nose up, in this case, we're so pitched, the nose is so pitched that the airflow over the wings is disturbed. Maybe I should get a pencil for pointing. So here is the relative wind would be coming from this side. It's hitting the plane underneath here. So with this nose up attitude, air is now not flowing so much over the wing, but it's flowing underneath. So we're dragging through the air like this. When we exceed the critical angle of attack, and basically angle of attack just deals with an imaginary line that's drawn from the leading edge to the trailing edge, right? Just an imaginary line. And then you need another point, which is the relative wind. So if we're going in this direction, the relative wind is coming from the opposite. So wherever we have the relative wind along with the imaginary chord line, which is a line from the leading edge to the trailing edge, wherever that angle is formed between relative wind and the wing chord line, right, we're gonna have what? Angle of attack. So when we increase our angle of attack by pitching the nose, the airplane will now begin to lose lift. So it reaches a point where it will not generate lift anymore, and then it just drops like that, right? But because these planes, they are very stable, when you cannot produce lift anymore because the nose is too pitched, the natural tendency of the airplane, which is the Cessna 172, will be to just, the nose will drop, and by the nose falling, we now reestablish a more positive angle of attack that will contribute to generation of lift, or generating of lift, right? So one more time, a stall is when we exceed the critical angle of attack and the aircraft reaches a point where it can no longer generate sufficient lift to keep us flying, right? So it will drop. So what he wants me to do is, we're in slow flight and we're gonna pitch up that plane beyond its critical angle of attack, put it in a stall situation, recognize the stall, and recover from the stall. So rather than finish slow flight and then do clearing turn and flow check and all these things, we just transition from slow flight right into the power off stall. Power off stall is simulating that we're coming into land. So this is the runway, we're coming into land, and as we are rounding out, we pitch up and for some reason we're distracted or something happens and we stall the airplane right over the runway when we're coming into land. So in case, instead of doing a regular landing, we stall, we maybe hit the tail, we roll over to the left or right, the nose, something happens and we just mess up the landing and put the plane in a stall. Usually it's when we're leveling off and we should wait for the flare, but we're impatient, which sometimes I do that. I'm impatient and I just begin to pull back and pull back and pull back, and then I stall it over the runway and it just drops and do all kind of stuff, right? So he wants me to simulate that we're coming into land and we inadvertently stall the airplane as we're landing. How do we recover, or how do we recognize, how do we recover? So to recover from this, to set us up, we're already slow, right? We're already slow, and we were, you know, maintaining 50 knots. We usually, our approach speed when we're coming into land in the Cessna 172, it's 65 knots. So in order to get 65 knots, what I'm gonna do is keep my power where it is. I'm gonna start a descent. So sometimes the examiner will tell you, okay, the field elevation, remember we're at 3,500. The field elevation is 3,300. So I gotta lose 200 feet, right? So I'm gonna start a descent. Power is set, flaps is set. I'm gonna start a descent, and I want to be descending at 65 knots. So I go ahead and I pitch the nose down. Of course, we can reduce power and naturally the nose will go down and we'll start losing some altitude. So I have my power just bringing it back a little bit so I can start that descent. And then, okay, I have my 65 knots established. I just scan the area one more time while I'm doing that, right? So everything is okay. I'm coming up on my elevation for the field, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go power to idle, and as I'm idling my power, the nose will want to drop, so I'm gonna pull back pressure to level off, which, remember, I was descending, so I'm gonna bring my vertical speed indicator to show me a 0 indication, which means we're now leveled right over the runway. Right, and as we're level over the runway, we have power completely out, we level out, and then we begin to feel that sink and we start flaring. Okay, stall warning goes off, so I'll say stall warning, and we feel the buffering, the controls getting really heavy. At this point, of course, I'm on my rudder, I'm staying coordinated. The rudders are just my best friend right now. I'm staying coordinated, I'm maintaining my heading. I cannot maintain altitude in this because we have to descend, and so what I do is, okay, I hear the stall warning, I feel the controls buffering, I'm flaring, and then guess what happened? Boom, the nose drops. So I go release the back pressure, full power, retract from 30 to 20 degrees of flaps. So I go retract 1 notch of flaps. I have 30 degrees of flaps in, so I bring it to 20 degrees. So I took out 10 degrees of flaps, I pitch the nose down, so I just relieve that back pressure, because that's how you recover from a stall. Recognizing it is I hear the stall warning and I feel the buffering. So to recover now, I need to release that back pressure, which is we want to reduce the angle of attack by moving away from the critical angle of attack to pitching the nose down. The plane already wants to do that, so we just release the back pressure that we were holding for the flare. And now we need power, because remember, we're on the reverse curve, right? Power for altitude, pitch for airspeed. So I'm already pitched and I add my full power, and this has to be real quick, right? So you're here, okay, you're flaring, okay, here's the stall warning, the buffering takes place, and now all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just release that back pressure I was holding, full power, retract that 1 notch of flaps, and I'm gonna just wait patiently, and then I'm gonna start climbing out. When I see a positive rate of climb, which I verified that on my vertical speed indicator, I verified that on my increase of airspeed, right? Then I will do okay, and I take my flaps out in increment. As my speed increases, I retract flaps. If I do it too quick, then I'm gonna go in a secondary stall, because now I don't have that broad wing that will generate lift, right? So one more time to recognize, I hear the stall warning, the controls get really, they begin to buffer, they're really lazy. I'm staying coordinated, I'm maintaining my heading. At least in this case, I need to still be in front of Lake Hodges. I do full power, retract 1 notch of flaps, and I wait for the speed to build a little bit, then I pull back pressure so I can climb out. I notice, okay, I have 65 knots, and I pull from 20 degrees to 10 degrees, retract the flaps, and okay, I'm gaining close to 70, 75 going up, and 10 degrees of flaps, and I climb away. Because it's saying you're coming into land, you stall right over the runway, so you want to level, push that nose forward to go back to the angle of attack that is conducive to getting lift, to climb out. Then as my speed builds, I just climb away from that stall, recovering the landing configuration. And I should do that within private pilot standards. So that is slow flight transitioning into a power off stall. It's where we simulate that you're coming into land and you inadvertently stall the airplane. So again, this video is for those who are student pilots. Maybe you're getting ready for your check ride, maybe you're aspiring to become a student, or maybe you're just a curious passenger who would like to learn what are the dynamics of coming into land and what to expect, right? So remember, hit that subscription thing on the right, give a thumbs up, post a comment, post a question. I like question, that helps me to make videos. So shoot a question in the comment section below and let me know, what are you thinking, what would you like to know? And again, I'm a student pilot, so guess what, I am always learning. So God bless YouTube. I'm gonna do some other procedures, but I don't want to record those, so we'll just basically end the video right here and show you this is just one of the things you can do in an airplane, preferably, or maybe in your car or something. But if you're a student and you have access to the airplane, you don't have to pay for this. Look, I don't have any instructor beside me. I'm not paying for any fuel, I'm not paying for the rental of the airplane. So at this point, it's completely free. And by doing it in the plane, when you're now flying, muscle memory kicks in and you remember flow check. You remember your clearing turns, you remember your radio call, you remember how you set up for the maneuver. You have a visual point outside, you have a heading bug on the selection side, and then you have to know that you got to do all these things within standard. So thumbs up guys, hit that description bar, and remember, flying by faith and by His Stripes Ministries, 1844.com, right here in the description. God bless and see you later. Bye bye.